This is Rugby Unity. I am David Pembroke and Ewen McKenzie. Hello from downtown Tokyo. It's a little bit wet today. It's been a beautiful weekend, but certainly looking forward to the week ahead, where Australia will take on Japan at the National Stadium. Did you catch the Australia A Japan result at the weekend?
Well, I caught more than the result. I watched the entire game, and yes, it was tough watching. In the end, it was. I felt for Japan. I thought they actually did a lot of good things. They just didn't have the capacity to convert. And they get 10, 20, 30 metres out and there'd be something go wrong. They took. They got penalties, and in the spirit of the game, they went for touch and didn't take shots at goal. And I think the 4 times they did that, or the 5 times they did that, they lost every line out. So I was just willing them to tap and go, which they started to do in the last 5 minutes, but probably should have started doing that in the first 20 minutes, and just sort of kept the game going. I think that would have suited them a bit better. They kept sort of playing sort of traditional tactics, and it wasn't, they didn't get a reward from the line-out that Australia stole the ball off them 4 times, and they were, so they were. It wasn't as lopsided as you thought. They were up there putting pressure on Australia. There's some desperate defence at times that's saved the day, a couple of held-ups. And, it's 4 stolen line-outs or 5 stolen line-outs. That was the difference. So, it probably should have been, sort of a 60-20 scoreline realistically, but it wasn't. Australia were clinical in attack, and Japan were willing, but weren't able to capitalise on the good stuff they did.
How impressed were you by the Australian team?
Yeah, I thought they did all the basics well. Those sort of games can be a bit tricky. You can get a bit ahead of yourself. So I thought they played the 80 minutes really well. They just kept plugging away. They weren't fancy, but they were able to pick their moments to keep the ball alive, but they did all the fundamental tight stuff, the gritty stuff. They tackled well, and forced errors and forced mistakes. So they did all the things you need to do then to be able to then keep the pressure on their pass. So they did. So I was impressed with them. I thought they did quite well. There was a little bit of ill discipline at times. There was a couple of stupid penalties, and there was a red card in the end, and a 20-minute red card. So the referee was interesting, guy from Hong Kong. I actually thought he was pretty good. The thing that I thought he was no good at was he wasn't very good at seeing forward passes, but because there were plenty. But I thought there were plenty of things, and I thought, and they never went back. And I thought maybe the TMO, I don't know, it was stuck in the beer queue or something, but he wasn't there. And then suddenly he turned up with 20 to go, and suddenly he was in the game, the TMO. So, but I thought the referee actually was really well intentioned, handled the players well, and he just. I guess he was trying to keep the game going. I'll tell you what he was good at. He was really good at keeping the tempo of the game up. He insisted on quick set-up line-outs, same with scrum. He wasn't allowing teams to dawdle. He gave there was actually I think a free kick or a penalty for not throwing the ball in quick enough, or not using the ball quick enough, which you don't see very often. So he used all the tools available to make the game flow. So I was actually quite impressed with that. So hopefully he'll get more opportunities. I thought he was pretty good for that type of game.
Yeah, it's interesting. Here in Tokyo, I wasn't able to watch the match because I attended the trial match between Toshiba and Kinetsu Liners. So it was played at the same time. So I wasn't able to watch the match, and certainly there's no sense of it about the place. Tokyo's this gigantic city, 33 million people, lots going on, but certainly, you don't get any sense that there is something coming this weekend with the rugby at all, and very little. And trying to find the match on the television was I gave up in the end, and I don't have a VPN, so I wasn't able to watch it on Stan.
Do yourself a favour and try and watch some of it, because I tell you, I'll give the gold medal, the Olympic gold medal, to the TV director, because he was terrific at at being able to pan from close in to wide out, and it sounds really stupid. But he was really good. Every time the halfback passed the ball, they went to a wide shot, and you could see the space that was available to the 5'8" and the whole back line. You could see it wasn't too far away. It was just enough to be able to see what both teams were doing and to see where the space. And so they let the play unfold. And then when it went back to a ruck or something, they went back in again and they went in and out the whole game. I thought this won't last because it's too good. Like you could actually see what was going on. So there's a lesson there for any of the Stan or anyone else that's out there filming rugby. You could actually see what was going on. You could see the close-in play, and then they panned out at exactly the right moment. So it's worth a watch for nothing else, just to see that, because I thought it was a really good way of being able to understand the opportunities in the game, which you can't see sometimes because the cameras they're too close up and you can't see where the space is. You could see it and see whether Donaldson was taking good options or not. And it was really quite useful.
So, in terms of these A games ahead of this weekend's game, can you draw anything from those, do you think?
I think it's a bit like the Sheffield Shield. I think in cricket, in Australia they play the Sheffield Shield. It doesn't attract media much. It doesn't attract a lot of fan base or whatever. But it's a really necessary part of the development and introducing players to the level below, and giving the national selectors players to think about. So the players go into that game with every opportunity to try and shine, and you could see that. You could see someone like Fezler, who'd been out of the game for a while. Pollard's been pretty much in control of the hooking position since he dropped out, since the first Lions game. And he was out there with a mission to try and prove that he's still got something. He looked trimmer. He looked fit. He carried the ball with venom. So that's just one example. And there are others out there trying to push their claims. Canham and Swain and some of these guys. Swain's another who played some Test football and then's been on the outer for some time. It's a good opportunity for him to put his hand up. And then we saw just a few other guys that sort of looked like they were purposeful. And there was a few young guys out there. Teddy Wilson. Dave Wilson's son was out there at halfback applying his trade. We've seen him in Super Rugby. It's good to see him in a different environment. So I thought it was game of Donaldson, another one who has obviously been in the Wallaby fold but dropped down the ranks a little bit. He got to touch the ball plenty of times in the game. He didn't overplay it. I think he kicked 80% or something off the boot. There was 11 tries or something, so he kicked quite a few conversions, and they weren't all easy. And he did some nice things with the ball. He didn't overplay it. It's the sort of game you could really overplay it as a 10. But he just managed to give people opportunity around him, and probably underplayed his game if anything. But he got through the game. So there's some interesting bits and pieces in amongst it all.
So we head to this weekend before all of the big matches kick off the following week in Europe, where there are all sorts of so much rugby to be played over the coming month. It'll be great to watch. Lots to look forward to there, but really the only significant match this weekend for global rugby will be here in Tokyo. Be Eddie Jones for a moment, if you would. Now, I know you don't have the knowledge of the Japanese players that he clearly does from coaching them full time, but you did see them play through the Pacific Nations Cup. You've seen obviously a lot of the Australians. How are you thinking about beating Australia this weekend? What's in your mind as to how you would best go about putting together a match plan that will succeed this weekend?
Well, I think we've talked in the past, when he's been online, we've talked about the use of tempo. I think that's an important part. I think that's a tool they can use. And that's why I was disappointed with the A game, that they didn't, there was one quick line out, couple of quick taps late in the game. They're tools I think that the Japanese should be using as part of their repertoire. That's offset with the things I saw in the Pacific Championship, where they've got a good scrum, like underrated, but I think it's actually quite a good scrum. And if they can get some, it's the line out that's the key. But they can play off scrum. Eddie's always got good plays off, good set plays off scrums. That's something they can capitalise on. Line out's the key. clearly in the A game they didn't. Australia competed very well and stole ball. Now they've been training in the same stable as
Squad, yep.
the squad, same squad environment. So I'm kind of hoping there's a bit more up their sleeve in terms of the line-out attack side of things. They got some good players, the captain, etc. So I'm hoping if they can get some line-out ball, again, they've got good plays off the line-out. It's got to get the ball, quality ball. So that if they can get their set piece right, that gives them a good platform. Otherwise, it's probably going to be mixing the tempo up between that and quick taps. I wouldn't be looking to give Australia too many line-outs, so I don't know if I'd be kicking the ball out. But you can target individuals and bury them in the bottom of rucks, so you've got to make your tackles. But I saw a doggedness in the Japanese A team and I've seen it in the Japanese team. I saw it in the final against Fiji. They were very competitive physically, so they're going to have to be. That's going to be the big part of the game, is whether they can deal with the sort of zigzag attack using the Australian forwards, and whether that just fatigues them or not. So he'll probably go to the bench early, but I think there's enough. He's got enough there to play with to be able to launch opportunities. They're quite skillful, and so we'll see. And the other thing, the big thing for me is who Australia picks. Whether Australia goes in with some sort of what combinations they've got, and sort of the more jumbled it is selection-wise, the more basic they'll probably go in with. A sort of a fairly straight up and a fairly predictable approach that they've been using in the last 6 or 7 Test matches, to sort of attritional forward play and then shooting it wide when they've exhausted the forwards and sucked everyone in, and then shooting it wide. So that's the selection of the Australian team is probably the key. How do you put your best side out there?
So well, that being the case, Australia lines up against England the following week. If you were coach, what would you do? Would you be picking your best team to play Japan, or would you be leaving the best team?
Well, I don't know. It's been it has been a long season. They've played 10 tests already, which is a little bit more than normal, but not much. But I saw the comments in the paper from Schmidt, and he's been flagging the fatigue. That they've had a heavy workload already. They've had 10 days off. So that tells me that, if that's true, then they're going to then obviously make some changes. And he mentioned the midfield and a few things like that. So I don't know. I'm more inclined to try and keep the core of the main group together, but then get them off the field early if things are going all right. So and then I'd be playing around with the bench. If I was going to give guys an opportunity, I'd probably use the bench to do that. More or less, maybe 80% of the team's core, and there's a few that 50-50s either way. But trying to keep some cohesion there and show some respect to the opposition. I think they are coming off a break, and they've had some rotation of players anyway in the last 3 tests. So they've got some opportunities, and whether you start with Tupu or Alatoa, but they're probably both going to be there, or maybe you put a different bench guy on there that might be the sort of that might be the change, is just having a different bench prop or something like that, knowing that the week after you'll have all your main guys out there.
Is that 10 days significant in terms of being able to get a break, to get a rest, to recharge, or because the Lions tour was very heavy, and the Rugby Championship clearly was, and lots of injuries as well.
That's true, but it's their job. Like, it's not like they're going back to work in the accounting firm, or they're a lawyer. They're not doing something else, right? So it's how they manage themselves in the 10 days. So they go out there and play 40 rounds of golf, or go deep sea diving with white pointer sharks or something like it. It depends what you do. If you rest up but it is their job in the sense that physical preparation is what they contribute. That's what they bring to the table, right? Their preparedness to be able to play, and that's their contribution. They got to turn up ready to go. So the season is what it is. You play 1 or 2 tests more or less. So there's 1 or 2 extra this year, but that's pretty much the same load as other years. So if you want to be in it, that's what you've got to do. So you just got to manage yourself. That's your contribution to your workplace. So I don't have not a lot of sympathy. there are guys. The injury side of it's important, so you've got to be looking for those fatigue type injuries, and making sure that they're not prevalent, you're not exacerbating that. So that's where you need your medical team on top of things to sort of look for those stress type injuries as opposed to something that's a collision related thing that you just can't avoid. So there's a lot in that space. So we'll see. We'll see what the selection is,
We
and
will.
but I don't want to. That's what Eddie will be watching the most, and he probably won't know till later in the week. But he might have spies out there around Japan somewhere, keeping an eye on what's going on. So we'll see.
Ben O'Keefe has the whistle. What does that do to the game?
Yeah, I think that he'll be good. He'll be good for the game. I think Australia's very precise, have been very precise at the breakdown. They're very committed in that area in attack and defence. They keep the fight going. You watch it. They'll get into the rucks and then they'll sort of fall around the edges, and there's things there that it depends on the refereeing, and I don't know how O'Keefe will deal with it, but I'm watching the games these days, and there's no such thing as a gate. I've said this in last week. There's no such thing as a gate. People just come in from the side, and you see sort of clean outs of legs and things like that from the side, and you see people cleaning people out past the ruck. I suspect that those things will get tidied up by World Rugby by the time you get to the World Cup, because it makes it all a bit loose. And that at the moment, I think that suits a side like Australia, where you can get dominant clean out and you can get literally clean everyone out of the way. So then teams have to make a decision whether they bother to compete. And you see teams, we saw it in the Lions series when they went a man down or whatever, and you saw it with Argentina. Argentina, as soon as they went a man down with the yellow card, they just stood out of the rucks. They didn't even bother competing. So when they're setting up their crocodiles to box kick and stuff like that, there's seriously 5 players there setting that up, and there's no one from the opposition there. They're all on their feet, ready to retreat, catch the ball, whatever, play from that. So they'll do your numbers and work out. And I don't know I haven't noticed that the Japanese they're willing tacklers, but I haven't noticed them being particularly competitive on the ball in terms of natural instinctively. So they might choose to stand out and just present a wall of defenders, but that's fairly attritional. If you've got big guys running at you, you've got to be able to do something to impact the play or force a turnover, force an error. So there's a bit in that space there. So O'Keefe, he'll be pretty good, I think. I don't. He hasn't had any shockers that I can remember. Now you might be able to tell me otherwise.
Hey, Link.
How are you, mate?
Good.
We're just talking about Ben O'Keefe.
Ben O'Keefe.
For your game.
Yeah, no.
Are you worried?
Nah, he's pretty solid, mate.
Yeah, I thought the same.
Yeah.
Rugby Unity.
I like you got your outfit on. You've been training today. Actually, people would be interested, I think, on a Monday of a test match. What's your day been like today? Give us the run through the day. So what time did you get up and get going?
For me personally,
through the whole day.
Got up about 4:30. Worked for about an hour. Went to the gym.
Went to the gym.
Then came back. Series of meetings. We had announced the team at 7:45. The starting guys then had a gym, a little bit of contact fitness inside, then some units meetings. This afternoon we'll have a leaders meeting. Then we'll have a run on a 3/4 pitch, small pitch, and just go through the start of the game, try to get organised for the start of the game. That'll go for about 45 minutes, little bit of units, line outs, backs will go through their scrum plays. Yeah, a lot of that hasn't changed a lot, particularly on Monday hasn't changed a lot, because you still, even though we didn't play a game, we trained Tuesday and Wednesday, so we don't want to take too much out of them today. And then we get into our work tomorrow, like the speed session tomorrow, physical session on Wednesday.
Okay, a full day. And what time will the players wrap up this evening?
No, we'll finish training about 6:30, and then they're done for the day. Yeah,
Okay.
Monday's probably the longest day for them in length time. Like the funny thing about professional rugby is the training times actually decreased, and it continues to decrease. Um, but obviously, there's additional stuff off the field that the players now have to do in terms of their own physical preparation. But we were lucky enough to have Dean Benton in last week, and because our normal S&C guy, JP, unfortunately, is crook, and he just brought a stronger importance about flexibility, and just got them to do more pointed stretching. And for some of the guys, they were really poor in that area. So, there's all the flexibility, there's all the recovery work, there's all the medical work, because their bodies are battered, mate. Their bodies are generally pretty battered now.
At this time of the year, because of the amount of rugby that they've played.
No, well, I think just generally, because now it's almost like a year-round thing for them. Like you look at our guys, they had their break post Wales. They had a 5-week break post Wales, and now they're actually at the start of their season. Like those guys who played on Saturday, who were all our young guys, they haven't played a game for 3 or 4 months. That was their first game for 3 or 4 months. So they're at their start of the season. And you think about the Australian guys, they're at the end of their season. They got 2 months. They got 2 months to go before they finish their season. Then they get a short break.
So with that, on the weekend, the 71 points to 7. You said that your players hadn't had the opportunity to play, whereas a lot of the Australian players clearly played in the Super Rugby AU tournament. But what did you take from the match?
Oh, we know there's a lack of depth in Japanese rugby, and that's one of the things we're trying to develop through games like this. We're trying to get that Japan 15 to play 5 or 6 games a year, you know, and give them more experience against better opponents. The only way you learn is to play against better opponents. I thought the Australian A side played a good, strong game of rugby, and we could compete for 20 minutes, and then after that it was like men against boys. But you learn from that. They're all got to go away now and write their yearly plan of how they're going to become an international rugby player. So it's an opportunity for them to learn.
And what do you draw from that, or is there anything that you draw from the A match through to give any sort of insight about the match that's coming up on Saturday, or is it just a completely
Zero.
separate undertaking? Zero? Okay.
2 different teams. But what we did pick up was that the Australians have done a lot of analysis of our game and picked up a number of calls, and they picked up a number of calls. So that's handy for us. That's a good little bit of intellect we picked up during the game. That's the advantage of sitting on the sideline, mate. You get to hear, when the players understand the call, you get to hear it. We just need to.
Is that what, Eddie? We were talking earlier about the game. I watched all of the games, so it was interesting, and I thought, I thought Japan did some nice things. They just weren't able to complete. They weren't able to finish it off. There were opportunities there. There's 4 or 5 opportunities. The thing that struck me was the kicks for touch, and then you had 4 or 5 lost lineouts. When we took the option to play for the 5 metre, and they weren't getting pay out of the drive there. So, but it might have been, as you say, I didn't realise, but the line-out call, they seemed to pick it off pretty easily, and that made it. You add that to a couple of held ups and a few things, and I said the scoreline could have easily been 20 something to 50 or something like that. If it had been a little bit fairer, but in the end they weren't able to complete the moment. They did a lot of good stuff in the middle of the field at times, but
I reckon it also shows you how, like, rugby's an organised game, but it's so situational. Like, a more experienced side would have worked out that, right, our line-out's not working, so what do we need to go to? They're getting caught from the sideline, but because they're trained, and particularly at the moment, I think young professional players are so compliant. And they don't watch a lot of rugby, they don't study a lot of rugby. I was reading a book by Belichick, the old Patriots coach, and he was talking about the fact that one of their most valuable meetings, they'd have a meeting what not to do, and they'd watch other teams, what they do in key moments in the game, to understand what not to do, to get the players understanding of what to do in the game. And you look at that game and you know 4 lineouts lost 5 metres from the line. You know that
Yeah.
that then helps the game be a little bit different. But you know at the same token, you've got to learn that. Sometimes you've got to experience that before you learn it.
No. Yeah, they went to the quick taps like, with 5 or 10 to go, and I thought probably 40 minutes too late. There are opportunities to maybe change the tempo of the game.
Yeah.
Earlier than that, they one quick line out late in the game, same thing. If the line out's struggling, the quick line outs, it doesn't matter if they send a defender up, you can still get past them. And you had some good. The fullback was terrific. Like there was some good, interesting players there.
Yeah.
But it leads me to statistically, and you've got stats, guys. I'd just love to know what the conversion rate is. Everyone, like in Super Rugby, the Reds were kicking for touch every time they got a penalty, and obviously looking for the driven maul. It just seems to me that the driven maul hasn't been successful in the last 3 or 4 months. I'm just wondering about the psychology of just going for the sideline. I'm not saying shoot a goal, but I'm saying tap and go. You still got the ball. You don't have to risk the possession, because the conversion rate on the maul, the driven maul try, for me seems to have dropped off. And I'm talking largely when you look across the test matches and whatever. I'd love to know statistically where that's at, because we've been doing it and it's become a habit, and it looked like a habit on the weekend for the captain calling it. But should it be a habit? Because I don't think the conversion rate has been as good across the whole. I'm not just talking about Japan, Australia. I'm talking about across the competitions. Maybe someone out there in support of land can tell us.
The last time I looked, it was less than 10%. And it was one of the arguments I had with the coaches, because the coaches all want to do the orthodox thing. So
I get that.
Be a little bit of a battle on that.
Well, 10% doesn't excite me at all. I think I'd do it as a change-up, not as a stock tactic. Everyone's been using it as a stock tactic.
Like you look at the early part of the game, we could have put 6 points on easily at the start of the game, and that gives you some scoreboard pressure. At least makes them feel like they're trailing the game for a period of time. Yeah, then you're in the game. So. Yeah,
the commentator was saying, "Oh, this is great. This is in the spirit of the game." And I'm thinking, bugger that, we weren't playing it wasn't a barbarians fixture. There's no barbarians. Like it's about people furthering their cause, and you got to practice goal kicking under pressure. There's lots of things. It's a skill set that you got to practice. You can do it in training, but you got to practice it out there with the stadium and all that sort of stuff. So it's not a waste of time taking a shot at goal. And the same with drop goals. I was watching the Six Nations again the other day, and Scotland won with the Italian. I can't remember who it was, but someone won with a drop goal. And I thought, we haven't seen a drop goal for ages. No one thinks about it. Well, it's not in the repertoire. So, yet it's a valid way of scoring points or breaking a moment or changing the dynamics of a game. It just seems to be forgotten for the moment.
Some really good points. So I think you think about the last game was England played against Argentina in I think it was the first round or second round of the 2023 World Cup. I think George Ford hit one or at least 2 field goals. Yeah, and they won by, I think they won by 3 points. The whole game they won by 3 points, which was a dangerous game for them, and they knocked Argentina over by strangulating it. So it's a really valid point.
Interesting though, Eddie, you talk about the team not changing their tactics. I caught up yesterday with Koji Akamatsu, because the reason that Rugby Unity is actually in Japan is to try to understand the game and understand the culture, and it's a very, very different place culturally. And Koji was taking me through some of the history that we go back that in the 16th century, Japan was sealed off from the rest of the world, and it became a very insular society. And then the samurai, the discipline, the obedience, the direction. And Koji was making the point that the Japanese teams often uh, struggle with this idea of changing their minds on the field or changing tactics when things or opportunities might arrive. Because if the coach has told them that this is the game plan, well, they're going to follow the game plan. Is that something that you come up against, and is that a difference that you find when you're coaching teams, perhaps England, Australia, and comparing them to the Japanese players? That culturally, it's a different way of the way that they behave, the way that they play the game.
I think initially, yes, but certainly when you've had a team for a period of time, they learn to make decisions. And I think it just takes a little bit more time. But I've seen it with our team. We've got Warner Dearns and Sushin Lee, who are the leaders on the field. Both young guys, 22, 24. And they embrace the change. They like the change. And they don't get encumbered by the game plan. You know, they just see it as a way to get into the game, and then let's work out how we adapt to the game. So yeah, I think that's an old thing in Japan. I think that's pretty true what Koji said. No one's got a better historical perspective of rugby in Japan than Koji Tokamatsu.
Yeah.
But it has changed a little bit, mate.
But it's also interesting here, Eddie, that there's no club system like there is, say, in Australia or in England or France, that the rugby is played in the high schools and it's in the universities. And indeed, the university rugby is so important that the importance of the university game impacts on the availability of players and other opportunities for players, because the university it's the purpose for why the players are playing the game. Again, so that structurally things are very different here. I had no idea that was in fact the way it is here, and it's almost totally different, totally opposite to the systems that we have in Australia and New Zealand and England and other places, Scotland, Ireland, the rest of the game. So it's a very different place for rugby.
Yeah, and that system advantaged Japan when it was amateur. It was a big advantage because the players trained more than any other players in the world. Like I did a presentation to some young coaches the other day. I was going through the facts in high school. Most Japanese players probably train at least 3 times more a week than um, players in Anglo-Saxon countries, for instance. So
Yeah.
they had an advantage because they had more training time. Uh, but it didn't translate to better skilled players. And so then the issue is the level of coaching, what level of coaching they're getting. And Japan's been trapped in a time warp for a fair period of time, where train, the longer you train, the harder you train, the more you train. I tell a story. I went to Sugadara, right, about 20 years ago, up in the mountains in Japan, and they asked me to take a session with Kyoto University. Kyoto University produced Nobel Prize winners. The second brightest people in Japan. So we do this session. They say, I want a 3-hour session. I said, well, I don't know if I can do 3 hours. I'll do 2 hours. We'll see how it goes. So we do 2 hours, train hard, train hard. And it's raining heavily, mud's everywhere. The players are pretty stuffed. And the coach says, right, we're going to do a yo-yo test now. They do a yo-yo test.
No.
And then he comes, serious. This is serious, right? This Kyoto University, and the coach comes up and he's got all the results. He says, shit, they're not fit, hey. They're not fit. What am I going to do? And these are the brightest people in Japan, but common sense wasn't part of rugby. Like, rugby was about endure. How much can you endure? How can you keep going? It was almost like an army pursuit, like being in the army. And now all of that's changing, and some of it to the betterment of the game, and some of it to the it's not improving the game, because then they've gone to the other side where they hardly train now. So which usually happens. You get one extreme, you go to the other extreme, and then virtually get in the middle. And so yeah, it's been an interesting history of rugby in Japan.
Mm. And he was also saying how the samurai spirit is so important to the Japanese, the Japanese identity, the Japanese culture, and rugby is seen as a way of exactly what you were saying before, that obedience, that discipline, that direction, that hardness, and it's about discipline more so than enjoyment. Where in Australia, perhaps we play the game to enjoy it and we collect skills along the way, whereas in Japan, rugby is seen as a way of building discipline and strength of character. And hence the training mentality that they train and they train and they train. And the competition structures are also very unusual as well, aren't they? Where there's a lot of training and there's not a whole lot of playing. And in the national competition for the university and for the national competition for the high school, you can train for months and months and months, but then once the competition starts, if you get beaten in the knockout, that's the end of your season. And you don't play anymore. So there's not the structures are very different to what we know in Australia as well. So where do you see it all going? Because obviously, because Koji actually sees it as almost a metaphor for the wider Japanese economy, that there's got to be a more opening up to the outside. There's got to be more engagement. How do you, though, see it as someone who's trying to coach the national team in this environment that is so different to what you would have been used to when you were in Australia or indeed when you were in England?
Well, I think like any place, you got to understand what's your best development system. I think Ireland have done it really well, where they're basically a private school based team, and they cultivate the best players in the private schools. And I think that's one of the battles Australia's had recently. The club's the foundation of Australian rugby. Super Rugby's sort of taken over from it. Hasn't really worked. So do they need to go to a stronger club-based system in Australia? In Japan, you're never going to change the high school to university system because it's an education system. So you can't change that, right? So in America, they've sought to change that by professionalising the sport in the universities. And with 350 million or whatever the population of America is, you've probably got the economic base to be out, or they can do it. We know they can do it. In Japan, that's not the case, and rugby's not popular enough to be a professional sport in the university. So then you've got to be thinking about, right, how do you cultivate your best 10% of the population? Because they're the ones who make the difference at the test level. So if you could have a system where, and they've done it in volleyball and they've done it in soccer here, where your best players at university level are allowed the freedom to play professional sport when they're still at university, and a lot of their studies are then done through online rather than being in attendance. I think that's the solution going forward. So, we've got a young fullback that played on Saturday, Yazaki, who scored the brilliant try. He hasn't played for us since November against the All Blacks because he hasn't been able to play university because university hasn't allowed him to play. And the only reason he was allowed to play this game was that he went to his coach and he demanded he play because we couldn't get him freed up. So he did that. He played, but it might be the last game he plays for Japan this year again.
Got injured.
We don't know. So the only way is to allow a kid like that to stay at university but play professional rugby. So basically have a university career and a professional career at the same time. And they're moving towards that, but things, the world sometimes turns slowly in Japan.
And another thing that Koji mentioned to me, I think it's the first week of December, they have the final of the All Japan Rugby Union match, the University Rugby Union match, and that packs out the national stadium, and it sounds like it's the pinnacle of Japanese rugby for the year, the annual University Challenge. Is that right? It sounds like a great occasion to attend.
You haven't seen the rugby, mate. Well, it might be fun to attend, but if you've seen the rugby, it's not that good, mate. I wouldn't put it on your bucket list. You sound like you
all right.
Match's spokesman, mate. Hey?
Well, we had a great. Well, I turned up yesterday to the Shibuya. So Saturday And then I went to Shibuya International Rugby Club yesterday to see the little kids there playing, and just the other thing which strikes you as well is that the facilities in Tokyo. And again, we were talking about facilities, and Koji said we're in Tokyo. There's no places where you can put the fields, so they're tiny little crammed spaces where they're trying to learn how to play the game. So it's a completely separate challenge, and I think to come and see it and to engage and to go and see the game at Toshiba, that was great as well. Will Genia sent his best to you as well. Link.
If you watch a practice game in Japan, you think it's great, mate. You would have been
I'm talking.
Roppongi the night before.
No.
He's been working those vending machines there. He's been on the beers.
No, what I'm saying is great was the occasion. See, So you go to a game and all you see is what's on the field. I go to the game and I look at everything that's off the field. Yeah. So understand that's the view I'm going to see, to look at the people, to hear the people, to watch the people, to see how they're engaging with it, to see, everything about the event presentation, and it was in the Toshiba grounds. Anyway, it was a great rugby occasion, and Shibuya yesterday again to see these little kids running around at the British Tokyo school there and having their opportunity to learn about the game. It just, wonderful stuff as well. So we've got some content that we'll be sending through so people can understand that, and an interview with Will Genia as well about his experience in Japan. So as we wrap up on the first day of the week, the Monday, Ewen McKenzie, I suppose the only other news that we do have is the final qualification tournament for the World Cup has been set. Belgium, Namibia, Samoa and Paraguay will play off 8th to the 18th of November in Dubai. And probably the big news over the weekend, the Munster-Leinster Derby. Munster, 50,000 people at Croke Park. Winners 31 points to 14 over the Ireland crammed side, which was a big occasion there for the Munster men as well. So Ewen McKenzie, as we look to the week, what are you looking forward to?
A bit of a habit of late of dropping the big ones. I'm looking forward to the Japanese-Australia game. That's the one I'm looking forward to. I've watched the whole game on the weekend. I watched the A game, and so I've got my juices flowing for the Test match. I'm hoping Eddie's got. We're waiting on selection, Eddie, to see who Australia picks. Yeah. Are you picking your best side? You're going to pick the young guys.
We'll pick our best, mate. We're dragging people out.
And then for you, Eddie. So for the rest of the week, you're still up on. You're in your camp. How does the rest of the week roll out towards Saturday night now?
Yeah, well, things are done a bit differently here, as you acknowledged. We have our biggest fan event, the last game of the year, on Wednesday. So we've got to train early in the morning, fly to Tokyo, do a bit of event at Tokyo Station, and then have Thursday and Friday to rest and recover and get ourselves mentally right to play fast for 20 minutes against Australia, try to set the tone of the game. And then hang in for the rest of the game and be close when the 60-minute buzzer goes, mate. And I think we're capable of doing that.
Very good.
I think Australia will be pretty confident, particularly after their 18 won. And it's good to see Australia doing so well. They're climbing back in the top 6 or 7 in the world. They've been a lot more competitive this year in all their games. They seem like they've got a good bunch of players together, well led by Harry Wilson. So, it's a good challenge for us.
Yeah, certainly. Well, it will be a very big week building up here in this wonderful city. It's certainly a great place to be a part of and to enjoy the food and all the various experiences and the cultural experiences. So it's a very enjoyable place to visit. So I'm looking forward to the week and certainly looking forward to the match at the National Stadium this weekend. So, sorry people, we don't have enough time today to be able to go to your questions and comments, but please keep them coming in and we will read them out as we go. But yeah, for the moment, please be kind to each other. My name is David Pembroke and it's bye for now.